here. The next talk will be by Alan West and co-authors, and the title is "Are Nanodiamonds Evidence for Younger Dryas Impact Hypothesis?"
Good afternoon. To a little bit of the background, both pro and con, and what you'll see today is some new evidence that we're presenting for the first time at AGU. Let's take a look. The nanodiamonds, as Wally said, are a big part of the picture. What are they? And so some of this information will be to show you that. So far, we found nanodiamonds at 16 locations in North America. We found them at 6 locations in Europe, and just recently found them at 1 location in Syria. So that's the extent of it. It turns out to be, let's see, got some other third parties, 4 groups that found nanodiamonds, the ones in yellow, that bring it out to 21 sites in North America. We've, Philippe Clays has found, and his group have found nanodiamonds at Lamo in Europe. Total distance is about 12,000 kilometers, and we don't know yet what the extent of the field is. So far, we've looked east and west. Everywhere we look, we find them in the Younger Dryas layer. So this is what they look like. They do have an unusual morphology, and all these objects that you see there are nanodiamonds. They're about 1,000 in the field of view, very small, about the size of a virus. So the real question is, how did they form? So, of course, we think they form by impact. But some have proposed that they formed by meteoritic accretion, just slowly fell out of the sky over a long period of time. Some people have proposed that they happened in wildfires, just common wildfires. Others that they might have formed in carbon onions, and some other unknown process that we just don't understand yet. So what we've done as part of our research is look at a number of sites, including this one in New Zealand, in the KT. You can see that the diamonds look very much the same. We find 5 allotropes: cubic, hexagonal, N-diamond, P-diamond, high carbon. They all just have slight variations in their lattice. We've also looked at Tunguska, and what you see is a background of amorphous carbon, and the white objects are all diamonds. And compare that to a YDB site in Texas, which is the Younger Dryas boundary. You see that they're identical in type, identical shape, and the sizes are all within identical range. So if 2 of those are by impact, and it is well accepted that the KT diamonds formed on impact by the impactor, the question is where Tunguska came from, but they are concentrated in the impact layer of Tunguska. So if those are impact, why is not the YD? Another very odd part is that the diamonds show up in what we call carbon spherules. This is half of one. The composition is terrestrial carbon. We've not seen any indication of a cosmic component. This is a TDM photo of a fragment of it. You can see it's embedded in the matrix. They're all the same morphology of diamonds. And this is TDM of the edge of it, and we find cubics embedded in the edge. And in addition, it's been reported that there are hexes that are embedded in the edge of the hex diamonds. So to us, this refutes gradual accretion. There's no plausible way that those diamonds could have gotten in that carbon spherule over thousands of years' time. So these are some of the known processes, not exhaustive, but by and large, these are hex diamonds, the way that they can be formed. Detonation or shock, carbon vapor deposition, laser, microwave, nanotubes, onions, all of these are lab techniques. So generally they require 3 conditions, or some mix of them: high temperature, high or low pressure, or hypoxic atmosphere. So what it turns out is that in the laboratory you need, for the most part, at least 2 of those, and generally some of them require 3 of those conditions to form diamonds. So how does this stack up to wildfires? Wildfires only produces 1. Only high temperatures, doesn't have high pressure, not hypoxic atmosphere, in combination with a high pressure, high temperature level. So another unusual part about that kind of breaks the connection between diamonds is that a flaming wildfire requires fairly high temperatures, and it requires, of course, oxygen by definition. So a problem is that those produce diamond combustion. Diamonds burn up at 550 C under oxic conditions. So the combustibility dust refutes the wild dry hypothesis. By definition, the diamonds couldn't exist. Cosmic impact, however, provides all three of those conditions. And in fact, it could provide for detonation, shock, carbon vapor, deposition, and nanotubes. All of those could occur as formation methods within the impact fluid. And so let's take a look at a few third-party tests. Some of them are just recently published. Suravel looked for magnetic grains, not for diamonds, but magnetic grains, made a good faith effort, found no support for the YD impact hypothesis, claimed he followed our detailed protocol, but in fact made quite a few changes. So this is a little bit of a view of how we extracted the diamonds as well as other things. This is Murray Springs. The YDB is directly below what's called the black mat, and that's a common misconception. It's not the black layer, but just below it. We typically sample a half centimeter below the black mat, sometimes 2, whereas Suravel sampled 10 to 28 centimeters, and in some cases that spanned 1,000 years, whereas we think this was a few-day event. Their sample spanned 1,000 years, so the question is, does that really matter? Well, let's look at what happened. This is what we found at Murray Springs. You see a quite sizable peak. And let's see what happens when we look at it at 10 centimeter resolution. The peak's gone. And the reason is that it was diluted about 10 times. So same data, different conclusion due to what we think were fatal sampling errors. Let's take a look at Gill. They reported looking for YDB markers in lakes. I think they made a good faith effort too. Didn't find any indicators. But let's take a look at what happens. In our paper, we published a minimum of 500 grams because these are trace markers, not very common. We recommend as much as 1,000 grams, and we find only 390 spherules in that kilogram. So that means that one spherule is at only 3 grams, but Gill looked at 1 gram. So 1 gram out of that 1,000, the chances of actually finding spherules is almost 0. So we think the Gill and the Suravel group, they tried to follow our protocols, but actually made changes, fatal sampling errors. And so it's not to say that the material was there, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it was an inadequate test. So let's take a look at some third-party tests of what happens for third parties who have followed our protocol exactly. This is from a site on the U.S. East Coast, and you can see the black mat layer analogous to Murray Springs. Impact layer is right below it. They found 10,000 spherules per kilo. It's the most we've ever found anywhere. And this is what one of them looked like along the East Coast. This is a melted teardrop-like, what would be analogous to a microtektite if you found this in the tektite fields. And this is another one where you see a silicate spherule fused into the side of a magnetite spherule. And all of these form at 15 to 1800 C, which is well beyond any known wildfire temperature. Another spherule that we find, you see it actually looks almost biogenic, but it's not. This is an aluminosilicate spherule. And this is a piece of possible impact blast. You can see that there are different materials fused into this. There's the kind of yellowish color, cream color, but lots of other things. Over here is the SEM photo seeing vesicles where this material actually boiled. So it boiled at quite high temperatures. The material was dominantly silicon, 61%, aluminum oxide, 22%, some iron, some titanium, all mixed fairly homogenously. And when we've looked, this turns out to be very almost identical to melted terrestrial clay or shale. This is an image of some of the magnetic fraction that we removed. You can see a few spherules in the optical one, but when you look, you see spherules that range from 100 microns or so down to submicron in size. And the chemistry of those all varies within a fairly narrow range of being aluminosilicate. Okay, so they're in the 12,900 year layer, essentially not above it or below. This is absolutely terrestrial geochemistry. There's no hint of any kind of ET material. So the best explanation is this is impact material. So we think this refutes ET accretion. We don't see any ET signature in there at all. And the temperatures required to produce this are extreme. To melt this is well beyond any kind of wildfire. So let's see what the extent of this melt blast is. You saw how far the diamonds extended. So this is our work and that of others. So we found ourselves 6 sites in North America, from Canada almost to the border of Mexico. We found 2 sites in Europe, 1 site in Syria, and then third parties working by following our protocol but without our involvement have found additional sites, bringing it to a total of 13 in North America. And then Cordy's group has found 1 site on the coast of Peru, another site in southern France, another site in Syria, and 1 site in the Caspian Sea. So very similar to the extent of the diamonds. So we find 9, others found 10, 19 sites across 10 continents, about 14,000 kilometers. So my time's up. So basically what we're saying is that we think the best explanation is cosmic event, but a lot is yet to be known. Thank you.
Give you real quick one question.
Coming back to the real problem is the precursor material of the impact. True. As you said, mostly you found evidence for terrestrial problems. So what do you think that now the main challenge would be to really find the source and the problem of the carbon which has produced these different polymers? And you perfectly know, I guess, that you do need to find a graphical source, which cannot be lost.
Okay, you couldn't hear your question, unfortunately. Continue with the song by J. Miller. Airburst in the sky with diamond, shock limit to the Younger Dryas Impact.